Welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name is Matt.
And my name is Jadrian.
And we are thrilled to have with us today
Abdullah Al-Bahrani.
Economics superstar. Abdullah, we're thrilled to have you join us. We'll have certainly a lot to talk about. We are recording this in Blacksburg, Virginia, on the Virginia Tech campus as part of the Jet Set Symposium. That starts today, or is it the Jet Set Conference? Am I getting
technically, the S is the symposium.
Okay.
So, just Jet Set.
Just Jet Set. Okay. We're at Jet Set. And excited to record a few live ones. This is probably the second one you will see live from Blacksburg. Last night we recorded with Wayne. And as we always start, what are you drinking? This is morning, so it's not an exciting beer. But I am having a Diet Coke, which is my vice of choice most mornings. So.
I'm having a cup of coffee.
Spiked
From
with?
where?
From the hotel lobby.
And not spiked.
Not
with
spiked.
Not spiked.
I have brought my coffee from home today, so I have a very. This is from my time at Penn State. Well, my cup is a Buc-ee's cup, so that's the Buc-ee's
That's
cup.
a win.
Right. So but what's inside it is what is better. Moving from State College, like right before I left, there was a really great. Some of my friends started their own coffee roasters. Absolutely, they make some of the best coffee ever. So I actually signed up for their subscription program. It's called Edu Coffee. They have absolutely, and they are not paying me to say that, but they have absolutely
Not yet.
Mike and Michaela, Edu Coffee could be
you're listening in.
the morning breakfast breakfast drink.
I like it.
Really great coffee, and they'll ship it to you if you're listening. They will happily take your money, just like almost any other business.
Very cool. So there are about a million ways we could take this particular conversation. So first, I guess I'll ask, are you presenting any new work at the symposium this session?
I am not presenting. I am, quote unquote, hosting with Jadrian. As the executive director for the journal, I try to minimize the amount of presentations that I do to make sure that everything else goes smoothly. So I'm taking a back seat, but I am chairing several sessions, and one of the sessions that I am super interested in is this group of faculty have created a session around the Econ Games, and the Econ Games is a program that Darshak Patel and I developed several years ago to increase students' understanding of what they could do with their econ degree when they go into the labor market. And these faculty members have developed a program of how do you incorporate the Econ Games as part of your curriculum at your institution.
So I've seen the Econ Games being promoted for many years. I believe it was pre-COVID when I started to see it promoted. Can you share a little bit about the origins, like how long it's been going, how many students participate in the Econ Games? I suspect some of the audience will know what you're talking about, and others will have no clue at all what the Econ Games is.
Well, for everybody that does not have a clue about the Econ Games, I would love to explain it to you. The way I like to explain it is the Econ Games is a program that was developed out of frustration. One thing that we notice is our students would apply for jobs that the job description would say this would be perfect for an econ major, but the economics major was not one of the majors listed. So to me, that was a gap. That meant that employers had no idea that economists would be a good fit. And then two, with students, and I don't know if you all notice this at your institution, but economics provides you with so many options of what to do in life and in career. And with that flexibility comes a burden on the students, and that is they have no idea what paths look like. So we wanted to minimize this informational asymmetry, to speak econ language, and create a role model effect or paths, and connect employers with future employees. And it's been successful. It started on the campus. It started actually by students at NKU. And then it's grown. Darshak Patel at the University of Kentucky and myself now are co-founders, and we run it every year. On average, we have about 150 students that participate from 10 to 12 institutions annually.
Very cool, very cool. Jadrian, I don't know if you have an idea on the first way to lead this, because I'm afraid that we could go about 14 ways and we'll end up cutting things. But if you don't have a
can tell
preference,
them
I
the
can
title,
start.
and then that way he could-
What title did you come up with before?
So this might be, so usually we have a topic idea, but we've known Abdullah for so long that we did struggle to come up with a topic. But I've pre-created the title for this talk, but we can obviously change it. It is currently the Economics Vlog Father is what we went with as the title for this.
Yeah.
So I could start with my question. This is, I've known Abdullah, a while, maybe a decade. I think since I started. And so one of the fun things of knowing Abdullah as long as I have is I've gotten to see his growth in just both teaching, professional life, personal life. And one of the things that I think, obviously, Abdullah, you've grown in a lot of different ways.
Thank you.
Just across the board. But to keep it in the teaching space, one of the things that Abdullah has done a tremendous job at doing is both teaching online, but also producing content online. And a lot of that comes out of his own personal experience during the pandemic, which I think I definitely think you should share.
Okay.
Because it is I've said this in class, and I think we've talked about it in the podcast. The pandemic was bad for a lot of reasons, but a lot of good stuff happened because of the pandemic. And so I think Abdullah's growth over the past 4 years is some of that. So maybe you could share what happened to you during the pandemic, and then how did that impact your teaching?
Okay, I'd be glad to do that. And I need you all to hold me accountable because I could talk about this. So jump in with questions at any time. First of all, it's an honor to be on this show. I've been watching you all develop the show and the podcast. And the reason that I am so in love with the work that you guys are doing is because I feel like part of my work influenced the growth of this program. So there is some sort of ownership here. The idea of vlogging or creating content happened during the pandemic. So I was on sabbatical that year. I was supposed to be in Dublin, Ireland. I spent the majority of the year there, but a week before everything shut down, I traveled to Oman to give a presentation about behavioral economics to policymakers. I arrived, I think it was February 27th, and March 8th, airports closed. My presentation was supposed to be March 12th. It never happened. Airports closed. I could not leave Oman, and I was supposed to return back to teaching August of that year. And it became clear that I was going to have to teach online. And the narrative at that time, and not to go back to those painful days, but the narrative was educators can't teach online. They can't compete with YouTube and TikTok, and therefore they should refund all the money and nobody should go to school this year. And I took that as a challenge. If the perception is I'm going to compete with YouTube and TikTok, why not be part of YouTube and TikTok and learn how to engage this current generation? And it's probably one of the best things I've done because it has made me a better communicator in the classroom. If you are forced to keep people online engaged that have short attention spans, the first 3 seconds, and you guys know this, and if you're still watching, then we've hooked you. But how do you hook your audience? And from there, it just became this idea of how can we provide better content, better engagement, and my brand has kind of evolved over time. Today, I would say it's more about this area that I'm calling professor life, prof life, because a lot of my students want to become professors or want to go into academia, but it's a black box. They have no idea. So it's more of a mentorship and a guidance. I'm having more success on Instagram than YouTube these days, but YouTube, I'm at 14,000 subscribers. It's kind of slowed. It's slowed down recently, but that's the history. That's where I'm at. But the beauty of this is you're always evolving because the market changes, and it's a great economic lesson is how do you react to the market?
Yeah, we were chit-chatting yesterday, and I used the term vlog father. I've heard it in a different setting with poker. There's a poker vlog father named Andrew Nemi who kind of started it, but maybe somebody else was doing something. But I would give you all the credit for starting the trend on this at least among economics educators. And I know I've learned a lot, and seeing you do the videos. You had me on a few years ago. I don't even remember when exactly it was, to just talk about why would anybody become a dean? It wasn't quite worded that way, but it was like, why would you want to? And it was really fun, and I thought, wow, this is so cool, but I bet it's a lot of work. I don't know how to do it, but over time, I'm like, yeah, I'll take a shot. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if you hadn't started it. And 14,000 on YouTube. The production, if you haven't seen Abdullah's work, so it's Econ with Dr. A. The production quality is top notch. I think it is the best of anybody who tries to do it. Our economics happy hour edits that, they're right up there, but no, they're not. They don't match.
We record straight through. I think we have edited one video where we had to cut something out. But speaking of that production quality, maybe that's you can go a little bit deeper in that, because I think I know it was in the moment, it was frustrating for you, just to give a sense of, when you were first starting, like what were some of the challenges of basically, you weren't live. I think you tried to go live, right? I think you were live streaming in the beginning and then said, never mind. Like what were some of the frustrations of trying to teach in Oman online while all your students were in Northern Kentucky? I would say both on the behind the scenes part, but then also sort of in the moment in the semester when students are trying to interact with you.
So first of all, there's no training that was provided. So I was learning everything by doing, and learning by doing is a costly way to learn. I did not live stream, and the reason being is because it was COVID, I was at a remote part of the city, trying to stay away from people so I could be on the next flight. I did not want to get COVID because that would restrict me from traveling. But because I was in a remote part of town, uploading a 5-minute video would take an hour. So I could not even do Zoom calls with my camera on because the bandwidth was so low. As far as learning, I mean, how to use a camera, how to use audio, and looking back at my first videos, and if you look them up, and I keep all my videos. If I create it, I keep it up. I don't take it off because I want people to see the growth.
Yeah.
But now I look back at it and I cringe, but at the same time, that's a sign of the growth. But yeah, like the first time I created a video, I had this unrealistic expectation that I had to read my script, and I scripted each one of them. And scripting is a horrible way of doing it. Don't do it that way. I scripted each one of them, and I felt like I had to go through the whole video in one take. And my wife, poor her, she was holding the teleprompter for the entire 15-minute video. And it was just so stressful. If I were to go back today, there's a whole different production method that I would take. But a lot of lessons learned about technology, how to talk to camera, how to be natural, how not to sound like you're full of yourself. These are all things that come with trial and error.
What have you seen as the biggest benefit that's come from your launch of the online profile? And I would assume 14,000 followers, that's on YouTube. That's a great number. My guess is Instagram. I don't even know Instagram. I'm not on it. I have an account that Charlotte runs. Thank you to Charlotte for for taking the other content and posting there. But what have you seen as, you've got a huge following. Have you seen is there anything that you're like particularly proud of that's happened, or is there any huge benefit that you've seen from doing these videos?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit is I feel more comfortable with who I am as an individual, period. I know what my value added is. I'm able to articulate it. Working at a regional comprehensive university, Northern Kentucky University, I love it, but it's not an R1 institution, right? And in our hierarchical profession, there is this perception that if you are not at an R1 institution, then you're not good as everybody else, if you may. So that's a hot take over here. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but it's a hierarchical approach. But social media allows us to compress that hierarchy. And it's allowed me to find a voice in a place where people are taking what I say for the value that it is. So it's allowed me to expand beyond our regional footprint of Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati. Now, with that said, I've always had a social media, like Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it, was the first step into that. That's how Jadrian and I met. I think that's how I've met all of you. Unfortunately, that platform has changed, and new ones have evolved to take its place, and creating video is so much cheaper and easier today than it's ever been. So that's my new favorite platform.
Cool. Might pivot a little bit here. I don't know if there's any further strands on this, but you're just completing your second year, I believe, as associate dean, and I know you love engaging with students, right? We met at a conference. I do think it was probably 2013 or 2014 when we probably met at a C-Tree or something with Norton, or the going into an associate dean role is very different. Curious what prompted you to kind of think about this. What have you found the biggest challenges of being an associate dean, and what have been the biggest benefits to you from that?
Yeah, I'll start with the benefits. So I think we're all in the game as economic educators to make an impact. As associate dean, my impact is greater. I'm able to influence the lives of more students, alumni, than being in the classroom. The difference is the impact is broader, so you don't see it immediately. So if you're looking for that immediate gratification that you get in the classroom or after a student comes to visit you in an office hour, that's gone. But now you're working on programs and things that have 2, 3 year, 5 year lifespans, and as long as you're patient, then you could see that impact. So impact is greater, different but greater. Work-life balance is actually better as associate dean than it is as faculty, and that's because of my weaknesses of scheduling. So when I was 100% faculty, I would work until I was exhausted because I knew I could take tomorrow off and recover. Today, I don't have that flexibility. I have to be ready at 8:15 every morning for whatever is presented to me. So I have to make sure at 4:30 I shut off. So it's made me more conscious about my recovery time, so I'm available to assist other people. So the work-life balance is something that I am happy about. I take weekends off. My hobby is also my work, so this econ with Dr. A becomes my weekend plans, but it doesn't feel like work. So as far as negative, the biggest challenge I have is from 8:15 to 4:30, no matter what I have scheduled, I don't own my schedule. Somebody could walk in and it could be the biggest fire to them, and I have to treat it as if it's the biggest fire to me as well. Yeah. So, that's why running meetings between 8:30 and 4:30 outside of campus is really difficult as well.
Yeah. I can hand it over to Jadrian for another comment, but you might be the first administrator to say your work-life balance improved after going into an administrative position. That's not common, and kudos to you on that. And for those we do have some people who listen who are going into the economics profession. I think you'd agree with us. Don't do the work till you get exhausted, and do have the work-life balance even when coming up in the professor ranks. It's pretty healthy. So.
Yeah, no, I'm on the negative side of it. I'm not. I was really bad with work-life balance, and then there was a moments where I got much better. Like right around the pandemic, I was like, I need to get better at this. And over the past year, it's been the exact opposite. Back to just full day long weekend stuff. I think part of the struggle is realizing that you need to have the break. And I have breaks planned after Jet Set. So Jet Set has been the big challenge, but it's coming. So Abdullah, you talked about impact, and I want to push you a little bit on this. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit on the impact that you have, because we've talked about this before in terms of like, what sort of impact does teaching have in terms of like helping a student? Are you actually helping more than one person? So I think there's a presentation tomorrow. That's actually, so the previous episode was Wayne. Him and his co-author are going to have a presentation over like what does it mean to have taught 100,000 students. So I think collectively the two of them have hit that goal. I'm not there yet. I think I'm only at like 10,000, and so it's easy to count students, but you forget like how big that impact actually is. Do you think? I mean, I guess I'll make sure I'll phrase this in a way that you don't feel uncomfortable answering the question. I don't think you give your social media presence enough credit for the impact that it has. If you had to put a number, and you can give it in ranges, right? You can give me a scale, right? Like not a specific number. How many people do you think you have impacted through your Twitter accounts, Instagram, your newsletter? Like, I know how many subscribers you have, right? But like, subscribers are not always views. We'll say, somebody has viewed it. 10,000 is the easy answer, right? I'm going to say it's definitely more than 10,000. I think you'd probably feel comfortable with 100,000. Now I'm kind of curious if you had to sort of narrow it down and say, is it 100? Is it 500?
Yeah.
Or I'm curious your own personal thought and how you think about your social media impact.
Great question, and I don't have an answer. We'll talk out loud on how I process this. So first of all, we have to define what impact means, right? And just because I came across somebody's feed, I'm not sure that's impact. So the way I quantify my impact is by the long-term relationships I have. And what I have is we have the Hale Fellows program that I designed at Northern Kentucky University to develop professional development students, give them research experience. It's really a mentorship program disguised as a research opportunity. But through the social media, I get questions often, either as DMs or as comments. And recently what I have found is instead of answering these as one-offs, I've developed an online community. So it's really just a WhatsApp group. If you're interested in joining, send me a message, and then we meet once a month. And that group right now has about 25 people. That's what I count as meaningful relationships. And then I have the Hale Fellows group, alumni group. So I measure impact by how much I interact and not by how much people have seen my content.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way to think about it. I was thinking when you asked that, something similar. There's, I guess there's deep impact versus somebody seeing, but I'm just looking, I went on to, if you're watching the video, you saw me going on to YouTube, and your top video, Why Study Economics, has 183,000 views. So yeah, is that a deep impact for 182,000 of them? Probably not. Yeah. They probably saw that, and it's, and we can get the statistics if you're on YouTube on how long people stay on it. And half of them will be done within half the time for most videos. But, that still means 80,000 might have watched the whole thing. That's good information to people. So I do think the super deep impact, I agree. But I think the little content here and there is a big deal. The fact that somebody was like, why should I study economics? Or they're thinking about it and they find this video and they're, oh, this is good information. It's a good take. And I can't remember what the one reason why not to was, whether it was just to make good money or if you remember your video.
It's the same reason that you should become an econ major, and that's too many choices.
Too many choices, yeah. But so it's great information to hear. I didn't know that when I decided to do an econ major, and it's great information. So I think I think the impact's broader. You're right, the deep impact might be small, but I think you've had a very big, broad impact.
Thank you.
We're getting close to our time where we start to go to pop culture. Any further, Jadrian, any further things before we go to the pop culture part?
Well, this is where I'm going to give Abdullah, again, more credit than I think he's giving himself, because before he became a dean, he was also the director for their Center for Economic Education. And we've talked to center directors before in terms of that impact that you have in terms of helping teachers. You're also helping their students as well. And so I've gotten to see this at Northern Kentucky with Abdullah, with the new director, of just in the sense of helping teachers. Then you get to see their students who are then, you helped their teacher teach better, and they then come to you. I don't know that I think we've probably talked about it offline, but maybe not on the podcast. I always appreciate teachers and students who come and tell me that my work is helpful. I do genuinely appreciate it. I'm always surprised, and that's not fake surprise. Like, I'm happy that I can help. I wish I could help more. One of the most impactful things that I have experienced is whenever somebody's students will email me or will message me If it's there, like I've had a parent email me a good parent email that was just like, hey, this is actually one of the really cool ones. And so maybe if she's listening, this will be really neat. It was on my newsletter. They had signed up because they're an economics high school teacher. And then they connected the dots that I was their child's economic instructor in college. And she's like,
so
I
cool.
teach economics. You taught my son or daughter. And like, you had such a big impact on them. Like, those are the sort of moments where it's that sort of, that not multiplier, but like that next level of impact that I can't even put a number, Abdullah, on how many people I think you have impacted in a positive way beyond, a student that you've taught who goes home and tells their parents, and their parents are a little bit happier because you made their student feel included. So I think I'm gonna put my number closer to 1 million, even though you won't.
Well, and I mean, I think there's a lot of educators here who would say that there have been things that we've all learned from you. And I mean, I don't know if this might exist if it weren't for you doing the videos, this podcast, but it might not. And also just ways to approach it, ways to think about it. So yeah, I think it's a big impact.
So I appreciate you both highlighting my impact. And I will ask you all this. I'll turn the tables. But the education/content creation model is a super lonely model. We've talked about this, right? I bet you there's people that are watching this, that are getting value from this or listening to it, that will never leave a comment.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're listening, leave a comment because it matters to us.
Yeah.
It's a measure of impact. So the reason that I am a bit shy to share the numbers or the impact is because you don't hear from the audience. You might hear the really great one comment, but you will hear a lot of the horrible, like, hey, why are you wearing that shirt? Nonsense comment. So if you have a good comment, leave a comment. Love to read it and respond to it.
Yeah, at some point, I think we will have to do an episode, Jadrian, where we just read the comments that we've had. That will be the episode for the day. But we do like to close each episode by thinking about bringing up a pop culture in economics clip. Any in mind that you'd like to highlight for the audience?
Yeah, so I have a paper out there on using ESPN 30 for 30 documentaries to teach economics. I teach mainly macroeconomics or another class called data visualization and tools for economic students. But I'm a big believer in the concept of property rights or modern growth theory and rule of law. And the video that I love to assign, it's a long documentary, but it's Once Brothers, about the collapse of Yugoslavia and the impact that had on people that were neighbors and family members, how these lines that were created, how they changed lives and really in ways that you would never imagine. But so I try to find those emotional shows that express the importance of good economics and how not using good economics or not leveraging economics can have consequences. So it's not those funny clips, but it's an impactful story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I can go next. So I'll give a preview of what we're doing tomorrow at Jet Set. But for those who are listening or watching, this was weeks ago at Jet Set. I'm actually doing a presentation. I agreed to do one, but I was very similar to Abdullah, where I was like, I do not want to be in presentations. I turned down a lot. Actually, Matt, I may have turned down our presentation.
You might have,
I think you may have asked about Taylor Swift, and I said no. But there's one that I agreed to do, and that is a partnership that I've been working on with the people at the Foundation for Economics Education. Derek D'Angelo has, I have nothing but high praise. I don't know how he does what he does. He is a former high school educator out of Michigan. I think he was the National Association of Economics Educators president. I think he was the Michigan He's done a ton of stuff. But one of the things he does with me is through our newsletter. I write it every Monday about something. Derek gets that newsletter Monday morning, just like everyone else, and then turns around throughout the day and creates a quiz on it and a lesson plan and some sort of activity for teachers. Full guides, like 15, 20 pages long, of just how do you use that newsletter in the classroom. He turns around and they put it out Tuesday morning. I do not know how he does it, and every week it's some sort of really neat activity. By the way, that is a free resource for high school teachers, so you should absolutely sign up. It's the Monday Morning Economist Classroom Edition, but they have stuff for all sorts of different things. So that's what we're presenting tomorrow. I'm going to very briefly talk about my newsletter for just a few minutes, but then Derek is going to go through one of those newsletters, and the one that we picked, so I'll give you two the benefit of knowing early, is a video that came out over the summer. It was so goofy. I don't know if either of you saw this. It was the two little British girls.
I love that video.
I'll show it to you afterwards. Two little British girls in a park. It's really just one British girl who is very angry. Their mother is filming them. She's very angry because she went to the ice cream truck, and the ice cream man is selling two ice creams for £9 each. And she goes on a 1 minute long rant of how stupid that man is, because she can get them in her hometown for only £1 or £2 each, and he's selling it for £9. And how ridiculous is it that he would expect to be able to sell ice cream in a park for that price? It's a hilarious clip, partly because it's a kid with a really heavy British accent.
Yeah.
But I use it to talk about anchoring and just this idea that, if you have a price in your mind, you think something costs $1 or $2, and all of a sudden it's $5 or $4, you're like, that's way too much. Yeah. And sort of that strong reaction that people have is a very nice behavioral economics example that I think we don't probably. I wish I taught behavioral more, but. We fly through it really quickly, but I like it because you can explain a behavior using economics.
I saw a news story on that £9 ice cream, but I didn't see the video. I'm going to have to watch this video. I will have to watch this video. No, I will I'll go a different route, but in honor of our discussion of how do you launch a video platform and how do you think through new things. Musical Suffs is new this year. It won Best Book and Best Score. I would almost say it's an upset. It didn't win Best Musical. But it's about the suffragette movement in the U.S. And there's a song early on, just really catchy song that will go on to Broadway economics, probably not yet, even when you're watching this. But it's called Find a Way. And they're talking about creating a march in Washington, D.C., the first ever march for women's suffrage. And going through all of the different things they have to figure out. And I think there's a couple different things. One is it highlights a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit and like something hasn't been done. They think there's value. How in the world do we put all of the pieces together? The second way that I like to think about it that relates to economics, if thinking about game theory and teaching game theory, in a sequential game, you're often taught to solve using backward induction. It's begin with the end in mind. The end is the day before the inauguration, they want to do a march. Okay, if that's the end goal, thinking through that, what in the world do we need to do now? And solving with backward induction or rollback equilibrium, depending on how anybody calls it. So it's a really fantastic song that will go onto Broadway economics. I think kind of relates to creating a media empire, as Abdullah's done. Well, thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Please, once again, we'd appreciate a 5-star review. And as Abdullah said, we love the comments. They not only will make us overlook some of the negative comments we see on the videos that go out, especially on the YouTube shorts. They can get pretty obnoxious. Yeah. But it also helps the algorithm when you leave the comments and other people might see this. So we'd appreciate that. Any closing words of wisdom for the audience?
Yes. In the spirit of YouTube, follow me on Econ with Dr. A. Like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. See you all next time.
With that, cheers.
Clink,
clink,
a little bit of everything.
Clink of the cans.